Hey guys, Sean here, Destiny Power Sports. We're at the Promation Corduroy Enduro, having a pile of fun. It was an absolutely beautiful day. Had the opportunity to race the Nicot EBeast in Corduroy's first E-Dirtbike class. Totally pumped. Results were good. Bike ran really well. Finished the course with 25% left. I could have probably done another test section, but regardless, it was a really good day. So we're going to jump into some race footage, show you guys what the E-Dirtbike class is like, some race footage with the Nicot. Overall, bike performed really well, and this is part of our testing before bringing these units in for resale in the spring. So overall, a couple smaller issues, but no showstoppers at all. It's been in 3 races thus far, been through the mud, been beating on it for quite some time now, and we're very pleased. Suspension's half decent, nothing too spectacular. It's a little undersprung like most stock bikes. Rims, brakes, wheels are really nice. Tires are pretty nice for a stock tire. 50 amp hour battery. I get an hour and 20 minutes of hard cross-country style riding, single track riding, 3 to 4 riding with the kids. It's kind of hard to pin down an exact kilometer, exact time, but the equivalent to an MX bike with a full tank. Yeah, so that's about it. So we'll jump into some footage here and go have some fun. Here we are getting ready to roll up to the starting gate. You can see the 2-stroker smoking away in front of us. So they're part of the vintage class. So the E-Dirtbike class rode with the vintage class on Friday. The vintage class had one more test section than us, had a total of 5. We had 4, just due to the large transit to that extra test section. Would have killed the batteries on the electric bikes. So overall, I think we had was 18 kilometers total between our test sections and transits. Took us just over an hour for the E-Dirtbikes. So rolling up here, you can see on the right hand side next to me there's a Sur-Ron. Got to try one of these out on the test track. Nice bike, small tires, a little bit smaller of a bike, good for what they're intended for. On the left you'll see 2 electric motion Escape R's. They are like a hybrid trials bike, designed and made in France. Super nice quality, really nice machines. I'll talk more about them a little later. And then the row behind us we have some more Sur-Rons, and it's pretty much the light class is behind us, and another EM. Okay, we're almost ready to go now. Not gonna lie, I was pretty confident that the EBeast was gonna have an advantage here, taking off against these bikes. The EBeast does have some pretty good power, so I was able to take the whole shot. That was about the last time I was in front of the 2 EMs, because I botched this corner here, and they took the advantage to pass me. And that was pretty much about it. The 2 riders there, one of them I believe was expert, and the other younger kid was pretty quick intermediate rider, so I didn't see them for too much longer after this. But anyways, we're rolling now, and struggled a little bit in the sand. We've got to definitely do a bit more practice in some deeper sand. Spent a lot of time in single track, but not as much in sand. So yeah, we'll get into a little bit of race footage. We'll start just rambling away about stuff. We'll jump into the EBeast, go through some of the specs and stats, and talk about the electric motion. I'm really excited about those. We're going to be a dealer in Ontario for them. Super excited about that, and it was really nice to get the opportunity to hang out with EM and ride those bikes. We also got to ride the KTM electric freeride. That bike was very nice. Really impressed with the suspension handling. Just the way it handled through the single track was really nice. Really enjoyed that.
Okay, that wasn't the best start, but that's okay.
As you can tell, I'm already fairly winded. It's normal for me. I get winded pretty quickly, but then after I get that out of the way, I'm pretty good to keep trucking. So give myself a little pep talk, start breathing properly, and away we go. So I apologize for the huffing and puffing, but with E-Dirtbikes, it's a little bit more prevalent in the recording than you would normally get with a gas bike. So. Let's talk Nicot EBeast. I know you guys didn't come here just for the huffing and puffing. So first thing to cover is going to be gear selection and transmission. So the Nicot EBeast has a 4-speed gearbox, traditional clutch, and I actually really like it. First, I thought it was a bit unusual, and most e-bikes don't have gears. So I kind of figured, you know, it was just designed that way because it was either convenient for them or, you know, I just really couldn't put my finger on why they did that. But after racing a few cross countries with it and using it, I've actually come to like the gears. I find with electric bikes, my wrist gets a lot more sore. You really have to be more precise in where where the position of your throttle is. Whereas, you know, two-stroke gas bike, once you're on it kind of thing. But what I did find nice was that when you're in a specific gear and you got arm pump and your hands are sore and you can go for half an hour, 45 minutes, whatever it is, you know, as hard as you can to your skill level, it's nice to be able to just grab full throttle in whichever gear you're comfortable in and just hammer the hill climbs or the sand or whatever portion of the track you're on. I found when I was up in third gear, it would get away on me lots. I'd break traction, so I actually started using second gear, but more wide open. So I have a KTM 300 XCW, and it's kind of the opposite with those for novice riders, anyways. Use your lower RPM and the torque, maybe shift up an extra gear to kind of lug it along. I found this bike's actually the opposite. I kind of want to ride in, for me anyway, second gear, like 3/4 throttle, wide open throttle. I found that the previous XC that I raced, that the battery life was actually better and the bike ran cooler. So I did the first 1 hour XC at Wilberforce in third gear, kind of with like that traditional mentality of like, you know, keep it up a gear and, you know, lug it a bit. And it actually got pretty hot and I started losing power, and I figured that's what it was from because there was a lot of big hill climbs there. So the second XC, I decided to just leave it in second and just wind it right out all the time. And I actually ended up with a bit more battery life. The bike ran cooler, and I mean the traction was just awesome. So yeah, that's kind of my opinion on the gearbox. First gear is useless and kind of dangerous. You never let anybody use first. It runs out, it's got no legs, so it runs out real quick and there's just a pile of torque there. Second and third are pretty good for running single track. So this stuff all right here is, I'm likely in second. Some of it I might go to third and you'll hear me shift. But usually second, 3/4 throttle is pretty good. Fourth gear will run you 95 to 100 kilometers an hour, which is, that gear is nice for the gravel roads, transit sections, so typically second to third. And you don't shift as much as a gas bike. It's more of like a range selector than it is a shifter. So once you're comfortable with the range you're in, if the terrain's the same, you're pretty much going to leave it there. I always stop the bike in whatever range I'm in. So if I was to stop here in a single track and let's say I'm in third, I would just keep it in third. I wouldn't bother shifting down through the gears. You don't need to do that. So yeah, there we go. Test section number 1 done. On to our first transit.
Thank you.
During this transit, there's a small water section, and it's a good opportunity to talk to water and electronics. So, up until the cord, I had no issues with water. So going through water, but I never submerged it or ran it through anything really deep.
Okay. First test done.
But at the cord, the second day, it rained pretty heavily. There was a lot of dew in the air. I had the bike outside. The trailer locked up overnight, and when I got it home, and I ended up actually having a problem with the start-stop switch. It started kind of blinking weird, and I couldn't get the bike to start. So I took the switch apart, and it turned out there was actually water in it. It had ruined the little battery. So I took the battery out, cleaned it all up. So just a forewarning, if you guys ever running one of these and that little start button that replaces where the gas cap is, just know that that is not waterproof, and that's something that they should look at fixing. But regardless, a piece of clear tape over top of it, you won't even notice it, and then water can't get inside. So these transit sections are a good area for 4th gear. So the EBeast runs really well in 4th gear and roads, stuff like that. Kind of cruises along effortlessly. You don't feel like you're lugging it or pushing it. There's definitely an advantage in that type of scenario over most of the other electric bikes, all the hybrids and surround stuff like that. The EBeast will just cruise by them. Obviously, I'm not wide open here, just taking it easy, but yeah, it cruises along real nice. One item that does need some work is the shifter. The shifter's really sloppy on this bike. It works, there's just a lot of play. They could really use to tighten that up. So people always ask, you know, how much power does it have? What does it feel like? And that's kind of a hard one to answer, but there's actually a lot more torque and power than I kind of expected. And it's a bit weird though, because you don't hear the engine, so it's hard to, like, when you jump on it and ride it, it's hard to judge, like, does it really have a lot of power or doesn't it? It's pulling, but because it's not making noise, it's just different. So it really helps to jump, you know, have 2 bikes going, ride with a buddy, and then get on and off and go between another bike. So I went between this bike and my 300 KTM 2-stroke. And the 300's obviously got more horsepower, more power. But when it comes to the torque, I honestly say from like half throttle or 3/4 throttle rolling on, when you're in the mud or on a hill climb, the EBeast probably has equivalent, or maybe even a bit more in certain scenarios, but it's pretty narrow. It's almost like it's got a power band. Right off the line, it's not too bad. You get up to about 50% throttle in 2nd and 3rd gear, and that's when it really starts to pull. But then it kind of pulls like a freight train, and then drops out sooner than you expect. So it's like mediocre power, then you get lots of torque, but unfortunately it's not very long-lived before you gotta switch gears. But the good thing is when you go between 2nd and 3rd gear and you just hold on the throttle the whole time, it does pull pretty hard for sure. So I mean, that's the best description I could give for, or describe how the power feels. Definitely got a lot of torque. 250cc 4-stroke. I think it's definitely got the same or more. Let's put it around maybe a 300 4-stroke, somewhere in that range. Yeah, so power-wise, it's in the power department, it's actually pretty good. Definitely a lot more than any of the other electric bikes I tried. Even the KTM freeride, I'd say this bike has more torque than that one. The freeride, I think you can ride faster, just due to a bunch of other features, but this it's got the torque. The other thing I could say though is that I think there's some programming that could be done. I almost feel like it's programmed to be like a road bike. It's got that kind of DRZ type feel. It kind of rolls on the power sometimes, and it could be a bit more snappy. But I'm pretty sure that's into programming. I've contacted Nicot and Frank and requested, you know, some assistance with that. I know they don't want us playing around with programming, but if we're going to get into these Nicots and start racing them, I think we've got to get into the programming and start setting up throttle curves, that type of stuff. Another good reason to get into the programming is the bike's set up currently like a 2-stroke. It doesn't have engine braking, and there's actually a bit of roll on there. So when you let off the throttle, it continues to add voltage to the motor, and the motor continues to roll. So I don't know what the percentage of power is, but it's almost like it leaves, like, you know, up maybe 5% power still going to the motor. So it kind of just coasts along really easy. It makes it feel really light in that regard. So there would be a cool opportunity there to be able to use the mapping switch and switch between like a 4-stroke field, 2-stroke. There's a lot of room to play, so that's somewhere where we've got to go with these. Electronics wise, so start with the battery. It's a 50 amp hour battery, 70 volt. The charger you get a 10 amp charger, so 50 amp hour battery, takes 5 hours to charge. The charger works fairly well. It's beefy, it's got cooling fins, nice fan, thick cables, the connector between the charger and the bike. A little bit on the skimpier side. It does work, however, and I think it'll last long. Just keep it clean and keep the cover on it. The battery, lithium ion. It doesn't get too warm, really. Actually, like I've pulled on the bike hard for long durations of time, and it heats up. It doesn't get too bad. There's a charge controller on the bike itself. So when you charge the battery, the power actually goes to a small charge controller behind the battery. So that could always be changed out if you needed to. And that's what charges the battery. Yeah. Moving on to the speed controller. So speed controller's under the seat. It's a ATP style speed controller. The terminals aren't covered or really protected, so there's a couple things there I think we could improve on. There is making sure that stuff's protected so it can't short out, because you never know. But you know, nice big beefy cables. All the connectors are easy to get at. There's a nice little programming wire that I'd like to dive into there one day. The motor itself seems fairly small. The wires going into it are all sealed really well. Lots of power coming from it. It sounds good. It never sounds like it's, you know, like there's never bearing noise or any awkward noises that come from it. It's nice, linear, smooth sound. It seems like it works really well. The rest of the controls and the handlebars are pretty simple. On your left hand there's a park and drive switch, so that's one of the legal items that has to be on there. On your right hand side you have a map switch, so on these current models that have been released, the map switch is actually backwards, they say. But I have a hard time telling the difference between the two maps, so it'd be really nice to be able to utilize those map switches. The actual gauge and indicator is really nice. The battery level is really accurate, so most bikes you'll pull on the throttle and the battery percentage will drop hard, or it'll say you're full until you're not. But that's not the case at all with the Nicot. It's very accurate, lap by lap. It goes down sequentially. There's no big jumps in battery percentages. I truly trust the battery meter on it. I'm really impressed with that. The one thing I don't like is it's got a key fob, which is a little unusual. So to start the bike, you actually have to unlock it with like a security system or a key fob. So I've taped that key fob to my handlebar pad and put zip ties on it, because if you lose that, you're euchred. So that's a little unusual. And then the start-stop switch with the water humidity issue. That's something else that needs to be looked at. Headlight is super beefy. Nice big cooling fins, all LED. It is a street legal kit, so it's got blinkers on it, tail light, everything's LED. All the lights are super, super nice. For sure, that's definitely a big bonus for this bike. And I think that's it for electronics. Now that we're on a roll here, we'll move on to the chassis, tires, suspension, all that good stuff. So one item I was very impressed with was the rims, spokes, hubs, brakes. Overall, the quality was really, really good. Nice anodized parts, beefy spokes. When I went to double check tension, they were all tensioned properly, which was really nice. Unfortunately, some of my other Apollo bikes and some of the other Chinese stuff that we deal with, that's not always the case. So I was really pleased with the rims. The rear sprocket's really nice. It's CNC machined. They milled out in between some of the openings. It just looks really nice. They used a nice big chain on it, gold chain, O-ring. I was really pleased with all that stuff. The frame of the bike is obviously from one of their other gas models, so most of this bike, looks to be modeled after KTM. To tell you the truth, the headlight, the fender, it looks like a KTM. There's obviously differences. It's a steel frame, the coating on the frame, it's just like a matte type finish, doesn't seem too thick. Probably, an improvement would be the coating on the frame for sure. You can definitely see some of the shop welding by hand, but overall, if it works, right? And so far I haven't had an issue. You don't feel any major flexing or anything unusual from the frame. It actually handles pretty well in my opinion. The geometry between the handlebars, the foot pegs, the seat, it's all pretty good. I actually find it feels pretty similar to my KTM, to tell you the truth, probably because it's modeled after it. But overall, pretty good. You do feel the suspension's soft, and there's just, some work that could be done there for like this type of application where you're actually racing it. Typical off-road enduro use, like this bike came with a light kit. It's designed to be on-road, off-road. If you compare it to like a DRZ type setup, it'd be pretty similar. Suspension works in this scenario, but obviously not the best. I am 260 pounds as well, so I definitely am far past the design parameters for the suspension, so I'm not allowed to complain about it being too soft. The valving works as well, so you adjust the valving. I did get it to stiffen up a bit, so I have the compression cranked in pretty hard on the rear shock and front forks, just due to my weight, and I like to have high compression. So besides the spring rates, the rest seems to be pretty decent. You definitely notice it though when you go from this bike to a KTM with proper suspension. It's definitely noticeable, but if you don't do that, it's actually seems pretty good. So that's the best way I could describe it. Handlebars are really nice. They're like a Pro Taper replica style bar. The bend is nice. If you are going to get handguards, the handguards that are on this bike now, they have a smaller insert for the bar. So some people talk about drilling this bar out and put in a proper, typical, I think it's called a collet. There's two different sizes out there. These handguards are from Amazon, I believe. They were dirt cheap, China brand. I figured it would suit in right for this bike. It came with two different sizes, so there's two main sizes out there. Just get the smaller one. Seat, I did have an issue where the seat kind of bent in half on me, so I was doing a big hill climb at Wilberforce, and I had all my weight on the front of the seat and full throttle, and it was just kind of a jackpot, and I actually bent the seat pan a bit, and the seat bent up, and the front of the seat unclipped from the fuel tank location, so that was a bit unusual, but I was able to just click it back in the position. The only thing ergonomic-wise I find that bugs me is my knees there's like a section between the plastics and the frame right around your knees where I find my knees kind of hit the steel frame just a little bit. Nothing too major, but just a notable.
Okay. Thank you.
So the Nicot comes with a couple different tire options. I got the Enduro tire. They're actually pretty good for what they are. I mean, it's a cheap Chinese tire. They're nice and soft. They're wearing pretty quickly, but that's a good sign of having some traction. I've raced a couple XCs with them. I did the Corduroy, and I've definitely had worse tires for sure. So overall, they're pretty good. I've smashed some rocks, logs, got no pinch flats yet. I'm sure it'll come, and then I'll put some tubeless in her. Yeah, tires are pretty decent. So this is pretty much going to wrap up the review of the Nicot. Overall, am I happy with the bike? 100%. For a manufacturer to come out, with a bike that quickly, and not have the years of experience behind electric motorcycles to go and produce something that you can bring to the Corduroy Enduro, that you can go race cross-country races against bikes that have been, 20, 30 years in development. In all honesty, I mean, you got to give them credit for that. Is it perfect? No. There's definitely, some items they need to work on. If you're going to buy this bike, I'd say you got to be the kind of person that's not scared to do a little bit of work, to dig into any little problems, to always be checking on your bike. If you plan to just turn the key and go and not really spend any time with it, this probably isn't for you yet. But I mean, they're honestly 90% there. And there's the haters out there that, you know, are gonna not like these bikes, hate electric motorcycles, whatever. I love my gas bikes, but this is just another addition to the team, and it works really well. It's really cool. We're going to continue the development of this machine, get into programming, get into suspension. DestinyPowersports.com is going to have aftermarket parts for these things. Lots of good information for you guys to, you know, build up these EBeasts. They're going to be half the price of the big name brand bikes. I think it's definitely a viable option. I know this bike in particular, we're going to make it into a single track weapon. Get it all dialed in and bring it to races and beat it up and just have a blast. And if you haven't gotten on an electric bike yet, you definitely have to try it out. Put the ego aside, put what you expect aside, and just jump on it, go have fun. When you're riding through the bush in silence, or you're with the kids ripping around and you don't have to worry about a clutch and starting your bike and noise and all that type of stuff, there's a lot of advantages to the electric bikes. Obviously, we're a bit biased at Destiny because that's what the whole business is going to be built around, right, is electric power sports, but that's for good reason. So don't be late to the party. Jump in, don't be scared. If you guys need any help, reach out to myself. Check out our webpage often. We'll continue to add content, all sorts of good stuff. This channel as well is going to be focused on electric power sports, so there'll be many more updates to go. I'm going to put some videos up that are comparing this to other bikes in some drag races, stuff like that. That will probably help to explain some of its capabilities a bit better. But yeah, that's it for me. I'm done rambling on. We're just about back at the trailer here in the Cord. I was going to talk about some of the other bikes, but hey, this is a video about the Nicot, so thanks for checking it out, and don't be shy to comment below as long as it's positive, yeah, and or it's based on your personal experience. Cheers, guys. Have a good day.
That's her, I guess. Yeah, she broken.
Yeah, the kickstand spring came off on that last test. Unfortunately, I didn't record the last test, so we just watched the transit all the way home. So I made the mistake and actually turned my camera off for the last test. And then when I thought I was turning it off, I turned it back on.
I can't remember, buddy. I was just following people.
That was a mistake because there was a lot of decent footage there. There was actually a couple good little battles. But that's how it goes sometimes.